Hello all of you wonderful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and here today I'm going to talk to you about video game secrets and tricks. No, not the ones that will see you net a hidden weapon or dole out tons of skill points, but about the tricks that our favourite titles play on us each and every time we boot them up. You see, the relationship between game and gamer isn't as simple a concept as just we'll make it and you play it. There's a myriad of things going on behind the scenes that we're not even aware of. Difficulty spikes, gameplay loops, progression systems, and a ton of things that make sure that we just can't kill ourselves by accident. You might find examples on this list you never knew about, and I do hope that is the case, as that means that the game is doing its job well. As in all honesty, you're not meant to know that they're happening. So with this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 secret ways that video games play you. Number 10. Crash Bandicoot 2 slows obstacles and gives extra health to struggling players. The first Crash Bandicoot is a pretty notoriously difficult platformer, one that many became reacquainted with in the recent Insane Trilogy remake. In fact, it was one of the areas that Jason Rubin, the game's director, wanted to address in the sequel Cortex Strikes Back. For the follow-up, Rubin implemented some cutting-edge difficulty shifting mechanics, known internally as Dynamic Difficulty Adjustment, or DDA, which would not only award struggling players an Aku Aku mask upon respawning, allowing them to take a free hit without damage, but also slowed the speed of boulders if players were killed repeatedly by them. Now, better still, fruit crates would even be transformed into checkpoint boxes if a player died near them enough. In Rubin's own words, the goal was to help weaker players without changing the game for better players. And though some of these adjustments are quite obvious, namely the Aku Aku mask, the slowing of an obstacle incrementally each time it kills a player is brilliantly subtle enough that just about nobody ever noticed it. The result is arguably one of the best balanced of all the Crash games, and the DDA mechanics were actually implemented in the recent remasters, but that collision detection kind of cancelled it out a little bit. Number 9. Gears of War multiplayer gives first-time players health and damage boosts. It's probably reasonable to expect behind-the-scenes tinkering to be kept to a relative minimum where multiplayer games are concerned, if only to ensure that there's a consistent, level playing field between the fanbase. Except that's not really the case at all, at least if the Gears of War franchise is any indication. In an unfortunately now deleted tweet, former lead designer of the series Lee Perry said, "In Gears, found out 90% of first-time players don't play a second multiplayer match if they don't get a kill. That first game's important." He followed up with, "So we started you off with some major advantages like additional damage bonuses that tapered off with your first few kills. While some might be exacerbated that other players are running around with buffs, at least it's only for a few kills, and let's be honest, when you're starting out that's probably fair enough. In fact, it's actually a really clever plan that allows for a carrot and stick scenario which players don't even realise is happening." Number 8. Mario Kart items are distributed according to a player's race position. It's no secret that most popular racing games employ rubber banding mechanics to ensure a consistent sense of competition between players, both human and AI, granting racers near the back of the pack an opportunity to catch up with first place and making sure that all races feel as tense as they can. But the Mario Kart franchise dared to take this much further and used a similar mechanic to calculate the distribution of various pickup items scattered around the map. These items include bombs, bananas, and boosts and so on, allowing players to get a leg up on their rivals. But as it turns out, those lower down the pecking order are given a higher probability of receiving a high value item such as a massive speed boost or the much loathed blue shell. Conversely, those in higher positions will rarely receive such items and largely be stuck on the more boring ones such as a coin or a blooper. At least with Mario Kart's blue shell being the grand infuriating equalizer that it is, nobody's really playing Mario Kart expecting a purely fair experience anyway. Still though, if you're in a first place and manage to have a blue shell on hand, you might actually be God. Number 7. Countless AAA games give more HP to your final chunk of health. Don't you just love that feeling of barely making it through a firefight with a slice of health so thin that it looks like it's been carved from an emaciated ghost? Of course you do, because it makes you feel like a bloody champion. And yet, when you think about it, that happens an awful lot in first-person shooters, doesn't it? That's because it's a tried and true practice by developers in order to keep players invested and feeling empowered despite just making it through. In practice, this means that many action games disproportionately allocate health points across your energy bar, such that the last last chunk or segment of health actually contains more HP than the rest. As a result, you'll feel the nervous tension of being low on health even though you've actually got more HP in the bank than you think, and you'll feel a tremendous amount of relief when you make it through the next sequence miraculously intact. It's been confirmed that both Assassin's Creed and Doom use this feature, and Call of Duty has a similar death shield system where players with low health can't be one-shotted by enemies. Number 6. The Uncharted series changes the animation speed of collapsing objects based on player ability. It's relatively well known that Uncharted, like many similar action-adventure games, deliberately has enemies miss their first few shots at the player, giving them an extra moment or two to get their bearings and launch a counter-assault. But this series also has a much more niche nugget of game dev brilliance, as according to franchise lead designer Kurt, if players are on one of Uncharted's many collapsing platforms or walkways, the animation of the collapse will subtly slow down or speed up, depending on the player's own progress. If you're lagging, the animation will slow down to give you a few precious nanoseconds to catch up, and likewise, if you're well ahead of the air quotes ideal timing, it'll speed up to make things feel a little more urgent. That's insanely smart, really, and plays so well into the game's sweaty palmed themes of making that final jump just as the ground is giving way. A similar move used in other games is called Coyote Time, a common technique that gives players a little extra leeway when jumping between platforms, despite them technically walking off the edge. And where can you find a great example of this? Well, Crash Bandicoot, which of course was also made by Naughty Dog. Number 5. Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice lies to the player about permadeath. Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice is an incredible game, and one that opens with a haunting warning for the player. The dark rot will grow each time you fail. If the rot reaches Senua's head, her quest is over and all progress will be lost. The obvious implication from this message is that Senua has a limited number of lives, and after dying so many times, she will be permanently dead, requiring the player to start the game all over again from the beginning. As it turns out, however, developers Ninja Theory were actually just toying with players, and the game doesn't in fact have any permadeath features whatsoever. Put so eloquently by Ninja Theory's chief creative director, the wording for the permadeath message was chosen quite carefully because we didn't want to lie to the player. It's actually your interpretation of the message that is what threw people off. Pretty crafty, right? Number 4. Bioshock slows down Big Daddy's running speed if you're facing away. One of the strangest lessons that video games teach us isn't that you can beat up all of your problems, but it's actually that sometimes what you can't see also can't hurt you. Memorably, the 2013 Devil May Cry reboot DMC had off-screen enemies move slower in order to balance the player's combat load, and similarly, Bioshock nerfed the speeds of the intimidating Big Daddies if you were facing away from them. After all, the threat of having a drill shoved into your back is made all the more terrifying when you know it's coming, but just hasn't happened yet. Bioshock designer Jordan Thomas claimed that this was to ensure that players didn't die confused, and when you consider the amount of things that are out to kill you across Rapture, giving the player a little chance to escape here is definitely commended. Number 3. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor adds health to dueling Uruks to prolong fights. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor is of course best known for its innovative Nemesis hierarchy system, but there's another neat flourish working under the hood to make even the most insignificant combat engagements seem dynamic and exciting. As confirmed by the game's quest designer / scripter Rick Leslie, when the player engaged in duels with Uruks, the horrible and stinky louts also receive a slight health boost in order to prolong the back and forth battle for the sake of spectacle. While this minor health buff rarely means the difference between life and death for players, it is nevertheless a subtly brilliant attempt to make fights seem more dynamic and epic, rather than just all Uruks effortlessly falling by your sword the exact same way as if they were just CGI fakeries and not at all tangible objects. Basically, it made the difference between the Hobbit films and the Lord of the Ring films. God, I hated the Hobbit films. Sorry, not sorry. Number 2. Counter windows are more generous than you think to boost players' self-esteem. It's pretty much a staple of third-person action-adventure games these days, like Assassin's Creed and Batman Arkham, that players will be given a small window of time to perform stunning counterattacks against enemies. When you pull these off, you feel like an absolute badass, basically the embodiment of the superhero that you're playing as. But it's a bit of a glass-shattering moment to learn that these counterattack time windows are actually a lot bigger than you thought. Even if you hit a few split seconds outside of the stated window, the counter system will typically still register in most games, with the idea being that this helps fuel a player's power fantasy. And number 1, System Shock made your last bullet deal double damage. While we've already explained that some games will make the player's last chunk of health count for a lot more than the player thinks, the cult classic System Shock series had its own ingenious way to keep players alive that little bit longer. As confirmed by developer Rob Fermier, who worked on the first 2 System Shock games, whenever a player is down to just a single unit of ammo, it is programmed to deal double damage. The idea, of course, is that this would heighten the possibility of players being able to scarcely dispatch an enemy before running dry of ammo, playing up on the desperation to survive by the skin of one's teeth. And when you think about it, it's quite incredible, really. And there we go, those were 10 secret ways that video games play you. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friends, and please let me know down below of any other additions that you would have put onto this list, because who knows, I might do a commenters edition further down the line. And while we're on the subject of things that can secretly play you, I hope that you are doing well, both physically and mentally. I know that at the beginning of the year, I'm recording this in January, it's cold and dark and a little bit depressing, but don't let the uncertainty of the year ahead get the better of you. Remember that you can speak to people about your problems, be they friends, be they professionals in the support industry. All of us care about you and want you to do well. Don't let your mind play secret tricks on you. Take a step back, take a breather, take a break, evaluate what you can and can't control, rebalance your energies, and then go out there and absolutely smash it, you big ledge. As always, I've been Jules, and go follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter. And if you want to do something a little bit extra for me, then why not go and check out my board game channel, which is called Live and Let's Dice. We play a lot of games over there at the moment. We're doing a huge Warhammer series, so if you like the sound of that, then we hope to see you over there soon. As always, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.